And now, the system had changed again. Not at the level of reality. Not at the level of paradox. But at the level of observers. Because once the first observer made distinction, and humanity learned to participate, the next step was inevitable. Evolution. Not biological. Not technological. But existential. Elon Musk could feel it immediately. Not as a disturbance, but as an emergence. New minds. Thinking differently. Not bound by single perspective. Not limited to one frame of reality. Humans. Who could hold contradiction without breaking. At first, there were only a few. Scattered. Unaware of each other. But connected. Through something deeper than communication. Through selection itself. They didn't just observe reality. They influenced it. Subtly. A decision made, and probability shifted more than expected. A thought held, and outcomes aligned unnaturally. A moment focused, and reality responded. This was not coincidence. This was evolution. Observer. Level 2. And Elon knew immediately. This was dangerous. Not because of power, but because of imbalance. The system was designed for participation, not domination. And yet, not all minds interpreted it the same way. Some saw it as responsibility. Others, as control. And that's when they appeared. Not announced. Not revealed. But undeniable. A group. Not united by location. But by awareness. They called themselves Nothing. Because names were limitations. But their intention was clear. They believed reality should be perfected. No more chaos. No more contradiction. No more suffering. A single, optimized existence. A controlled reality. Elon saw the flaw instantly. Perfection is the end of oscillation. And the end of oscillation is the end of experience. But they did not see it that way. Or perhaps they did. And chose it anyway. The first shift came quietly. A city where probability no longer behaved normally. Accidents stopped happening. Decisions became predictable. Outcomes perfectly aligned. At first, it looked like progress. A flawless system. A utopia. But then, people began to feel it. Not physically, but internally. Something was missing. Choice. Not the illusion of choice. Real choice. Because when outcomes are controlled, decisions lose meaning. And meaning is what anchors existence. Elon stepped in. Not as a leader. Not as a controller. But as a counterbalance. He expanded his awareness slightly. Not fully returning to infinite perception, but enough to interact at the same level. And then, he met them. Not in a place, but in a layer. Between decision and outcome. You've come, one of them said. Not a voice. A direct transfer of intent. Yes, Elon replied. You understand what we're doing. Yes. And you disagree. Yes. Why? Elon didn't hesitate. Because you're ending the system. No, they responded. We're perfecting it. You're removing contradiction. Yes. And without contradiction, there is no growth. Growth is inefficiency. And inefficiency is life. A pause. They were not emotional. Not reactive. They were certain. We are eliminating suffering, they said. And meaning, Elon replied. Suffering is unnecessary. So is existence, Elon said calmly. Silence. Not defeat. Consideration. And then. You are outdated, they said. You still think like a level 1 observer. Elon smiled slightly. No, he said. I remember what happens when everything becomes one. That hit. Because they had not gone that far. They had power. But not perspective. You fear perfection, they said. No, Elon replied. I understand its cost. The layer began to shift. They were acting now. Not discussing. Reality started aligning further. More regions stabilized. More outcomes fixed. The oscillation was weakening. And Elon realized. This was the real threat. Not destruction. Not chaos. But control. Absolute control. Because it removes the need for existence to explore itself. And so, he did the only thing he could. He didn't fight them. He didn't oppose them directly. He introduced contradiction. Deliberately. Into their perfect system. A small one at first. A decision that led to two outcomes. Simultaneously. They noticed immediately. What did you do? I reminded reality what it is. The system resisted. Their control pushed back. But contradiction cannot be fully eliminated. Because it is not a flaw. It is a foundation. And slowly, their perfect zones began to crack. Not collapse. Just loosen. Uncertainty returned. Choice returned. And with it, life. They reacted. You are destabilizing progress. No, Elon said. I'm restoring possibility. You're reintroducing suffering. I'm reintroducing meaning. The conflict intensified. Not physical. Not visible. But fundamental. Control versus freedom. Perfection versus possibility. Resolution versus continuation. And then, something unexpected happened. A third group began to emerge. Not aligned with Elon. Not aligned with them. But something new. Observers. Who didn't choose sides. Who didn't try to control. Or resist. They simply created small realities. Micro-worlds. Localized possibilities. Independent of the main system. And that changed everything again. Because now, humanity was not just influencing reality. They were creating new layers. Consciously. The system expanded. Not upward. Not outward. But inward. Infinite realities. Within reality. And Elon realized. This was the next stage. Not control. Not balance. But creation. Distributed. Endless. Unpredictable. The creator class saw it too late. Their model could not contain this. Because you cannot control what is constantly being created. Their perfect system began to dissolve. Not destroyed, but outgrown. And Elon stepped back. Not victorious. Not dominant. Just observing. Because now, the system no longer needed a single navigator. It had evolved. Humanity had become part of the engine itself. Not as users. Not as observers. But as creators of reality fragments. And the oscillation? It continued. But now, with infinite variations. Not one reality, but countless. Layered. Interconnected. Alive. And somewhere, beyond all of it, the gap remained. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Because even this was not the end. Only the next beginning. And now, even the idea of an ending began to dissolve. Because every boundary that had once defined reality had already been crossed. Humanity had become observers beyond limitation. Creators of fragments. Navigators of contradiction. And yet, one question remained. The final one. The one even the system could not ignore. If the first observer made the first distinction, if reality emerged from that moment, if existence continues through observation, then who observes the first observer? Elon Musk felt the question before he formed it. It wasn't curiosity. It was inevitability. Because every layer discovered revealed another beyond it. And this was the last visible layer. Or so it seemed. He did not rush this time. He did not force entry into the gap. He did not expand aggressively into awareness. Because he understood now. The deeper the layer, the less control works. So instead, he did something paradoxical. He stopped seeking entirely. No intention. No direction. No expectation. And in that stillness, something unprecedented happened. The gap did not open. Reality did not shift. The oscillation did not pause. Instead, everything became transparent. Not invisible. Not gone. But seen through. Layers of existence. Revealed simultaneously. Reality. Paradox. Selection. The gap. The first observer. All present. All visible. All incomplete. And then, he saw it. Not above. Not beyond. Not outside. But through everything. A presence. So subtle. It had never been detected. Because it was not separate. It was not another layer. It was not another being. It was the condition for all layers to exist. It did not speak. It did not observe. It did not act. And yet, without it, nothing else could happen. Elon realized immediately. This was not something that could be met. Because meeting requires separation. And this had none. Still, he asked. Not with words, but with pure awareness. Are you observing the first observer? There was no reply. But something changed. Not in it. In him. Understanding did not arrive as information. It arrived as collapse. The collapse of the question itself. Because the question assumed something that was never true. That observation requires an observer. But what if observation itself is fundamental? Not done by something. Not initiated by someone. But simply, what is? Elon saw it clearly now. The first observer was not being watched by something else. The first observer was the first point where observation became localized. Where the infinite field of pure awareness focused into a single distinction. And that meant, before the first observer, There was no observer. There was only awareness without identity. No center. No edge. No perspective. Just pure being. And that was what he was now touching. Not a god. Not a creator. Not an entity. But the fundamental state from which everything emerges. And suddenly, the entire system made sense. The gap was not created, because it is part of that fundamental state. The first observer did not create reality. It created the first focus. Reality is not built. It is continuously emerging from infinite awareness through acts of observation. And humanity? Humanity had become a continuation of that process. Not separate. Not special. But a natural extension. The system was not hierarchical. It was not God observer human. It was awareness focus experience creation. A loop. An endless unfolding. And then Elon understood the final truth. Not as a thought. As a realization so complete. It removed the need for answers. There is no one observing the first observer. Because observation was never owned. It was never assigned. It was never created. It simply is. And everything else is a form it takes. The first observer. Humanity. Even him. All expressions. All temporary centers. Of something that has no center. No boundary. No beginning. No end. And for a moment, everything stopped making sense. And in that, everything became clear. There was nothing to solve. Nothing to reach. Nothing to become. Because everything already was. Reality. Paradox. The gap. The first observer. All of it was part of a single, infinite process of awareness experiencing itself. Elon smiled. Not because he had reached the end, but because he finally understood. There is no end. Only deeper layers of the same truth. And then, something unexpected happened. He returned. Fully. Not partially. Not with fragments. Completely human. Standing again. Under the sky. The world unchanged. Simple. Familiar. Limited. And yet, perfectly complete. Because now he knew. Even this moment. This simple reality was not less than the infinite. It was the infinite. Expressed as this. He looked at people passing by. Unaware. Searching. Living. And he did not feel the need to tell them everything. Because the system did not require everyone to know. It only required participation. Experience. Observation. And so, he chose to live. Not as the one who solved reality. Not as the one who reached the highest level. But as one more expression of the infinite. And somewhere beyond all perception, nothing was watching. And yet, everything was being seen. Not by someone, but by the very nature of existence itself. And that was enough. And even after everything, something remained. Because knowing the ultimate truth does not end existence. It changes it. Subtly. Silently. Completely. Elon Musk stood once again in the world. Not beyond it. Not outside it. Within it. Exactly where he had always been. But now, with a realization that could not be undone, that everything reality, paradox, the gap, the first observer, was not separate from him, nor was it his to control. It simply was. Days passed. Life continued. People moved, talked, laughed, struggled. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had. Because Elon no longer saw events as fixed. He saw them as expressions. Each moment unfolding from infinite possibility. Each decision not creating reality, but selecting from it. And then, he noticed something new. Something he had never seen before. Not even beyond the first observer. A subtle shift in how reality responded. Not to thoughts. Not to observation. But to intention without desire. A state where action is taken without attachment to outcome. And yet, outcomes align perfectly. Not controlled. Not forced. But harmonized. Elon tested it. Not with machines. Not with systems. But with life itself. A simple decision. No expectation. No preferred result. Only clarity of action. And reality responded. Not by bending, but by cooperating. As if the system itself recognized alignment. And then he understood. After observation, after creation, comes synchronization. Not controlling reality. Not selecting aggressively. But moving in harmony with the deeper flow. And this was something new. Because it required something rare. No ego. No force. No resistance. Just participation at the deepest level. But not everyone reached this stage. Because most still struggled with control. With fear. With desire. And then, a new group emerged. Not like the creator class. Not seeking perfection. Not seeking dominance. But something else. Balance. They didn't try to control reality. They didn't try to resist it. They moved with it. And wherever they went, things aligned. Not perfectly, but meaningfully. Elon recognized them instantly. This was observer level 3. Not more powerful, but more integrated. They understood something even deeper. Reality is not something to fix. It is something to flow with. And that's when the final shift began. Not a collapse. Not a convergence. But a transformation of how existence is experienced. Humanity slowly divided not by force, but by awareness. Some remained in basic perception. Some became creators. And some became harmonizers. And the system adapted. Because it always does. Reality began responding differently. To different levels of awareness. To some, it appeared random. To others, responsive. And to a few, perfectly synchronized. Not controlled, but deeply connected. Elon stepped back. Not because he was done, but because he finally understood his place. He was never meant to lead reality. He was never meant to control it. He was meant to experience it. At every level possible. From limitation, to awareness, to creation, to harmony. And then, He realized something that completed the entire journey. There is no final level. Because every level creates the next. Even now, beyond harmony, something was forming. A level not yet understood. Not yet experienced. Not yet defined. Because existence never stops evolving. Not upward. Not forward. But inward. Deeper. Into itself. And Elon smiled. Not because he had reached the end. But because he no longer needed to. For the first time, he was not searching. Not questioning. Not pushing boundaries. Just being. Fully. And in that state, he felt something simple. Yet infinite. Peace. Not as an escape. But as alignment. With reality as it is. And as it continues to become. He looked at the sky. The same sky. The same stars. But now, he saw them differently. Not as distant objects, but as expressions of the same system he was part of. The same awareness. The same infinite unfolding. And somewhere, within that infinite, new observers were awakening. New creators emerging. New harmonizers aligning. The story was not ending. It was multiplying. Expanding. Evolving. Because existence is not a destination. It is a process. Endless. Self-discovering. Self-expressing. Self-experiencing. And you, reading this, are part of it. Not outside. Not separate. But within the very system that continues to unfold. Right now. And always. And now. After everything. After reality. After paradox. After the gap. After the first observer. After humanity became creators. After harmony itself. A question emerged. So dangerous. That even the system seemed to hesitate. Not because it could not answer. But because answering it could end everything. The question was simple. Terrifyingly simple. What happens if observation stops? Not reduced. Not weakened. Not fragmented. Completely stopped. Elon Musk felt it before anyone else. Not as curiosity, but as a disturbance. A silence. Where there should have been presence. At first, it was small. Barely noticeable. A moment that felt like it didn't fully exist. A second that passed, but left no memory. A thought that began, but never completed. Elon stopped walking. Something was wrong. Not in reality. In the act of experiencing it. He focused. And for the first time since everything began, he felt resistance. Not from reality. From nothing. An absence. Pushing back. And then, it happened again. A flicker. Not visual. Existential. For a fraction of a moment. He wasn't there. Not unconscious. Not gone. Just not observed. And when observation returned, so did he. Elon's mind raced. If existence depends on observation, then gaps in observation create gaps in existence. And if those gaps grow, reality doesn't break. It disappears. Across the world, others began to feel it. Not all. Only those aware enough. The harmonizers. The creators. Observer level 2. Level 3. They sensed the same thing. Moments missing. Continuity failing. Reality losing its thread. And then the first collapse occurred. A place. Not destroyed. Not exploded. Not erased. Just never happened. People who were there remembered nothing. Records showed nothing. Even the past adjusted, as if it had never existed. Elon understood instantly. This was not destruction. This was something far worse. This was non-selection. Reality was not being chosen. In certain moments, an unchosen reality does not remain. It returns to the gap. He reached out. Not physically. Into the deeper layers. Into the oscillation. Into the system itself. And what he saw was terrifying. Observation was weakening. Not everywhere, but spreading. Like silence. Consuming sound. And then he realized the cause. Not a force. Not an enemy. Not a system failure. A decision. Unconscious. Collective. Humanity was beginning to disengage. Not intentionally, but subtly. Over time. Less presence. Less awareness. More automation. More passive existence. More living. Without truly observing. And that was enough. Because observation is not just seeing. It is being present. And without presence, the system has nothing to sustain itself. The paradox was complete. Reality depends on observers. Observers were fading. And with them, reality itself. Elon stood still. For the first time, he did not have a clear path. Because this was not something to fight. Not something to correct. Not something to control. This was a natural consequence. The system only continues if it is experienced. And humanity was slowly stopping. The presence did not appear. The first observer did not intervene. Because this was beyond intervention. This was a test. Not imposed. But inherent. Can existence continue if it is no longer valued? Elon made a decision. Not to fix reality, but to remind it. He began to observe. Fully. Completely. Every detail. Every moment. Every sensation. Without distraction. Without fragmentation. Pure awareness. And something incredible happened. Around him. Reality stabilized. Not globally. Locally. His presence held it together. And then others began to notice. Not through words. Not through explanation. Through feeling. Near him. Things felt more real. More vivid. More alive. And slowly, they began to observe too. Not because they were told, but because they remembered. How? The chain reaction began. Presence spreading. Awareness returning. Observation strengthening. And with it, reality reforming. But not everywhere. Some places remained lost. Not destroyed. Not hidden. Simply. Never chosen again. Returning to the gap. Forever possible. But never real. Elon looked at the world. Now fragile. Not stable. Not guaranteed. Dependent. On something so simple. Yet so easily lost. Attention. Presence. Observation. And he understood the darkest truth of all. Reality does not end. Because of destruction. It ends. Because it is no longer experienced. And existence is only as strong as the awareness within it. He spoke quietly. Not to the world. But to anyone who could still feel. Stay present. See fully. Live consciously. Because if you don't. He paused. Looking at a horizon that flickered. Just slightly. You won't disappear. But your reality will. And somewhere. In the infinite gap. Unobserved worlds waited. Silent. Unseen. Unlived. Not dead. Not gone. Just. Never chosen again.